Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to my newest project video. Today, I've got a 5.1 Jag Arms stock high Capa that I'm planning on upgrading with a whole bunch of internal performance parts. It's going to focus today on the upper receiver as well as the sear spring in the lower, but for today, we're not going to mess around with lower stuff as much as we are with a complete upper reassembly. So, let's get into some of the parts. All right, so first up, we have a Dr. Black aluminum upper slide. We've got an LA Capa Customs threaded outer barrel. We've got a garter nozzle with no internals. We're gonna go ahead and take the internals out of the nozzle that we already have and put them inside this and get this guy into our Edge super lightweight aluminum blowback housing. These things are really nice. Next up, we got the springs. I've got a 120% recoil spring from AIP. I did 120 because we're going for a lightweight, short stroke, really fast build. So I want a 120 instead of a 140. I would have gone the 130 Waldo Snappy Boy, but they were out of stock of those. So the next best thing I think would be the 120. I don't want to put a 140 in there for a build that we don't need it for. Next, we've got the 140% nozzle spring from AIP. Then we've got our LA Capa Customs short stroke kit. We've also got a Cow hammer power regulator. I'm not sure if we're going to do this one today or if we're going to wait until we do the lower rebuild to put this one in. But we are going to put this into the lower. This is the Trident sear spring. This is going to make our trigger very snappy, which we're going to want with that short stroke. Next up, we got the barrel assembly. We went with the LA Capa Customs brass hop-up unit. This thing is super sweet. Very nice hop-up unit. We did the PDI inner barrel, the 118. These things are also the best inner barrel, in my opinion, that you can get. And then we did the Maple Leaf Decepticon bucking. That's going to go in there. Those are all the parts we're going to need to upgrade the upper fully. Actually, I think we could probably assemble the entire upper out of just these parts, except for we're going to need the internals for the nozzle. So let's get started with that. All right, so here I am assembling the barrel assembly. I'm starting with the hop-up unit. There's two little screws on the side you have to undo to take it apart. Pretty easy to assemble this part. You just take the inner barrel and the bucking, and then just it comes with a little clip, a little metal C-clip. Just shove the bucking. You can kind of see on the inside the little gap part. You put that together with the little nub on the inside of the bucking, then you put the little C-clamp over it, and the bucking is in place in the barrel. Next, you gotta get the barrel into the hop-up unit. And it's got a total direct control TDC, I think that's what it stands for, total direct control wheel on it, so it applies even pressure throughout the entire top of the hop so that it comes down evenly and gets you a really accurate hop up. Really easy to put together. You just find where all the little nubs fit, in place, and it's literally two screws to take it apart. Here I'm taking some screw glue and I'm coating the two set screws, or the two screws that put it together, because I've heard that they can come loose. So. Next up, it comes with two little screwy bits. One is to hold the guide rod in place, and the other one is to hold the hop up in place. First, I'm going to put in the rod that holds the guide rod in place. It just screws right in the front, super easy, and then the guide rod can go straight into that when you put the guide rod and recoil spring in. And then this little teeny tiny set screw it comes with. I'm really glad that I have this little screwdriver kit, because it has all the little sizes for the tiniest little set screws. This thing goes in and it helps you keep the hop-up unit itself as secure to the lower frame as possible. It allows you to make it to where, like, I'll show you here in a second, when I put it in the lower frame, Uh, take the upper off of my high Capa, and then I check it for fitment. You just put the hop up in, and you see how much wiggle I got right there? It's quite a bit of wiggle. So you just kind of tighten that screw, you push it in a little bit, and it just pokes out in that little gap, and then it makes the hop up fit tighter to the lower frame. And then right here, I think I actually put too much into the screw. It goes in too far. Oh, I know. This is where it's almost good. Still got a little bit of wiggle. And so next here, I screw it in too many times, and it gets too thin, the gap, for it to go all the way in the hop up. I can't make it go all the way in there. So I just give it a couple of screws back out the other way, and there you go. And it fits right on there with very little wiggle room. When I wiggle it, the entire frame wiggles and not the barrel at all. So I get this working pretty good, and I'm very happy with the fitment of the hop up unit. I had two really frustrating bits of this little build. The first was these 3 O-rings that come with the outer barrel. You're supposed to be able to put them around your inner, and they make it much more secure in the outer, so there's no wiggle room, and it makes it more accurate, obviously, because you don't have the barrel wiggling around in there. But I'm not sure if most standard stock barrels are thinner in diameter than the one that I ordered from PDI, but every time I'd shove it in, all the O-rings would just get pushed all the way down to the bottom, and it would not fit in. I could not make the O-rings fit inside this outer barrel at all, and it was such a pain in the butt. So yeah, I tried everything. I lubed up the O-rings, I shoved them in there. I even put some black electrical tape in between them to try to get them to squeeze in between the inner and outer, and I just couldn't. So eventually I just busted out my O-ring kit, found some littler ones that still fit snugly in between the inner and the outer, and then I decided to just go ham and put a shitload of them on there. I think I have like 9 or something on there that I ended up going with. And they all fit perfectly. They stay in place when I put them in there, and they make it to where there's no wobble whatsoever between the inner and outer. It's great. And so next up on the to-do list on the build here is to take out the blowback unit. We have to get the internals from the nozzle out of this thing. So taking everything apart, looking at all the stuff that I'm just not going to use. I think the only thing I'm actually using from this upper is the internals from this nozzle. There's a little screw in the back of the slide that allows you to take out your blowback unit. You've also got to take out the screw that's in the top of the iron sight. And then the blowback unit comes right out. The nozzle comes right out of the blowback unit. And here's our new lightweight aluminum blowback unit. Perfect color match for the build. I'm loving the way that the colors are all coming together on this. The inside of the nozzle itself, the way to take it out, there's a very tiny little screw on the side of the nozzle. You take that out, and then 3 little bits should pop out of the inside of the nozzle. Tap them out. And then once you got that, the 3 little bits, it's a spring and then 2 little plastic guys that make the valve on the inside. There are super easy instructions on how to do this exactly. This isn't supposed to be an instructional video, just kind of a walkthrough with me as I did it myself. Everything put back in the nozzle, hold it in place, and then screw it in. And we got our nozzle. Looks good. Alright, the blowback housing came out of this upper without the iron sight needing to be completely removed, but I'm doing that now because at the time I was under the impression I'd be able to use this iron sight with my build on the Dr. Black aluminum upper, but you'll see later in the video it doesn't really go according to plan. right here I'm seeing how freely the nozzle's moving on its own inside the blowback. Giving a little bit of lubricant for the outside of the nozzle. I found that anytime you got plastic rubbing on metal, silicone oil is good. Anytime it's metal on metal, you want to use grease. So I lubed up the O-ring on the piston on the inside, and then I lubed up the outside of the nozzle itself. And the nozzle spring goes in there, and the blowback unit goes easily into the upper. They were meant for each other. It goes right in. And then the blowback unit came with a shorter screw to go through the slide, so it fits better. It fits perfectly, actually. Of course, you can't put the iron sight on with the blowback unit already screwed in, so I had to unscrew that back out. And then this is where I realized that I was in trouble, when this slide didn't take this iron sight easily at first at all. I even scratched up the upper a little bit trying to make it fit, hammering on it with my little screwdriver handle and trying to make it go in there, because by all the way that it looked, it should have gone in there. It looked like perfect fitment, and I know that they sell the little sight removers or sight installers, but this just didn't feel right to me. It wasn't going in easily enough, so I decided I'd just buy myself a $50 friggin' iron sight, and I ordered that from AIP, and that will be at the end of the video. Alright, here we're going to install all the parts for the guide rod, recoil spring, short stroke. We have the upper there, we have the outer barrel. It slides right in, goes right up to the nozzle. Fits great, looks great. I'm going to take our short stroke kit. I have 3 of the buffers and a little metal washer with my recoil spring and my 4.3. I'll show you the little ring that's in there. That makes it so that's not as much friction. And that all squeezes together real tight. It would not go in there if it was a 5.1 guide plug. It has to be a 4.3 to make that work. But then you also have to short stroke it like this. So I might have been able to put another short stroke buffer on there, but I didn't want to risk it with 4, so I just went with 3. And this is exactly where I realized that I'm not going to be able to show you guys the performance of it at this point. The jag arms lower, the rails that the slide slides onto are the right fit, but at the very bottom of the new slide there, right where my thumb was just touching, there's a little bit of a wide part, so it doesn't fit into the lower that I have. So I had to order a whole new lower, and while I was at it, I ordered every single thing that I needed for the lower, so I'll be making that in part 2 of this video. This is where I've gotten my iron sight in the mail. It fits perfectly on there. Don't even have to slide it in there. It just goes right on like it was made for it. The rear sight doesn't come with any holes to put the fiber optics in. I thought that was weird, but the front sight does. So I'll just screw the rear iron sight on here. That screws directly into the blowback unit. Super easy. All the trouble that I had with that other iron sight really frustrated me with how easily this was to put on and go in. So same with the front, that slid right on. It was a little tight, which is nice. You don't want it to get loose, so I was able to put that in place with my fingernails. And then it comes with 2 different color fiber optics that you can cut to the size that you want. Ended up looking great in my opinion. I'll be back shortly with part 2. Show you guys the building of the lower. Thanks for watching.